You've probably heard of strange supernatural experiences, but have you ever wondered if a person can actually die and come back with an unbelievable story of unconditional love in the afterlife? I did. During a routine dental procedure, I didn't expect to fall into a coma and die. But when I faced death, I didn't feel fear, but only a deep and unconditional love. A love that even my closest loved ones on earth couldn't give me. The afterlife wasn't what I imagined. There was no darkness, no coldness, just absolute peace and a great love that transcends all. Do you believe in stories like this? I want to share with you my journey from darkness to light. And leave a comment 999 to receive the message and connect with each other. Now let's explore the story with me. Hello, my name is Harry. It's strange to think back on how much fear I once had, especially around the idea of death. I spent so much of my life dreading it, as we all do, worried about the unknown, the void. But then, one day, I found myself in a situation that led me to experience it firsthand. And what I discovered was nothing like what I had imagined. It wasn't dark, cold, or empty. In fact, it was beautiful. It was more like a homecoming, a return to something that I had always known but had forgotten. There was no fear, only an overwhelming sense of love and peace. I felt as though I was embraced by something far greater than myself, something all-encompassing that I had been searching for my entire life without realizing it. I could feel this powerful sense of oneness, like I was connected to everything and everyone. There were no more boundaries between me and the universe. It was as if I had become part of the vastness of existence itself. But before that moment, my life was anything but peaceful. I grew up in a small rural town where poverty and hardship were a constant. My family struggled to get by. My parents did the best they could, but they were often absent emotionally, overwhelmed by their own struggles. There was a lot of tension in our house, a lot of anger. I learned early on that love was something you had to fight for, something you had to earn. It wasn't given freely. And when it was, it always came with strings attached. I remember the way my father's voice would rise in anger when he didn't know how to deal with his own frustration, or the way my mother's tired eyes would look at me, filled with the weight of her own disappointments. I felt suffocated by it all, by the constant fighting, the never-ending struggle, the sense that no matter how hard we tried, things would never get better. But in a strange way, this environment shaped me. It fueled my desire to escape, to break free from the cycle of hardship that seemed to define my family. I became determined to succeed, not just for myself, but for my children. I wanted to give them the kind of life that I never had. The kind of life where love wasn't something you had to fight for or earn. I wanted them to feel safe, supported, and free from the kind of pain I had grown up with. As I grew older, that drive only intensified. Every step I took toward success was fueled by the memory of those difficult years. I worked hard, pushing myself through every obstacle that came my way. But it wasn't just about achieving success for the sake of it. It was about proving that I could break the cycle, that I could rise above the circumstances I had been born into. I wanted to create a legacy, to show my children that they could have anything they dreamed of, that they could be free to explore the world without fear, without the limitations that had once felt so suffocating. It was December of 2020, just a normal day for most people. But for me, it became the day that everything I thought I knew about life, death, and reality would be completely turned upside down. I remember sitting in the dentist chair, feeling the familiar sensations of the procedure unfolding. The sterile smell of the office, the soft buzz of the lights above, and the coolness of the tools as they touched my teeth. It was all so ordinary. But then, suddenly, something shifted. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable. A slight dizziness that I brushed off as nothing more than the typical side effect of a dental procedure. But it didn't go away. Instead, it intensified, and a strange warmth spread through my body. It wasn't a comforting warmth, but something more foreign, something that didn't quite belong. And then, Without any warning, I felt it. The sensation that my body was no longer mine. I had no idea what was happening, but I could feel it with a certainty that was impossible to ignore. It was as though the physical boundaries of my body were no longer a part of me. I wasn't in it anymore. It was like I had become an observer, watching from some distant vantage point, and I was utterly confused. My senses were still active, yet they no longer seemed to connect to anything tangible. I wasn't looking through my own eyes anymore. No, it was more like I was floating above my body, hovering over it, and I could see myself lying there, the dental chair tilting slightly backward, my mouth open as the dentist worked. It was the strangest thing, seeing my own body as if I were a spectator at my own life. I could hear the muffled sounds of the dentist's tools scraping against my teeth, the faint hum of the machinery in the background, but I wasn't part of any of it. My consciousness was no longer tethered to my physical form. I wasn't aware of my limbs or the position of my head or even the sensation of my mouth being worked on. All of that seemed irrelevant now. Instead, I was floating in an entirely different space, one that felt like nothing I'd ever experienced before. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was just disoriented. Maybe it was some side effect of the anesthesia or the stress of the procedure. But the more I focused on the sensation, the more I realized how impossible it was to dismiss. There was no denying it. I wasn't in my body anymore. I could see it. I could hear the sounds around me, but none of it was real in the way it had been just moments ago. It was as though I had transcended the physical world, and I was looking at it from some other plane of existence. I started to panic. I had never experienced anything like this before. Was I dreaming? Was I hallucinating? Or worse? Had something gone terribly wrong and I was dying? The thought of death crept in, and with it, a cold wave of fear washed over me. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. All I knew was that I wasn't in my body, and I couldn't explain it. There was nothing grounding me to the reality I once knew. I could feel no heartbeat, no breath. I had no physical form to worry about. It was as if the connection between me and the physical world had been severed, and I was now floating in some liminal space between life and death. The thought lingered in my mind. Could I be dead? Was this what it was like? Was this the moment of transition from life to the other side? I had no idea what I was stepping into that day, no way to anticipate the profound shift I was about to undergo. It was unlike anything I had ever imagined. Not just an experience, but a revelation. One that would change everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the very nature of existence. I found myself entering what I can only describe as a void. A vast, expansive space where everything I knew, everything I had believed, seemed to dissolve. At first, it felt like nothingness. An emptiness where time had no place and space stretched out endlessly. But as soon as I surrendered to it, everything changed. There, in that vast nothingness, I discovered a profound bliss unlike anything I had ever felt in my life. It was pure, unfiltered, and so incredibly soothing that all my fears, anxieties, and worries simply vanished. The best way I can describe it is like floating in the most peaceful, serene sea, one where I felt no weight, no burden, no need to worry. I felt untethered, free, in a way I had never experienced before. And then came the love. It wasn't something I had to seek or find. It was already there, flowing into me, enveloping me like a warm embrace. But it wasn't just any love. It was unconditional, all-encompassing. A love so vast and infinite that I couldn't even begin to comprehend it with the small part of me that had always been confined to a physical body. This was a love that existed without boundaries or conditions. It was pure and all-inclusive, and it felt as if it had been there forever, waiting for me to notice it. It wasn't an affection tied to any person or individual. It was a universal force, an essence that made everything around me feel connected. In that moment, I realized that I was not alone. I was never alone. I felt a deep, unshakable connection to everything, every living being, every soul that had ever existed, every consciousness that had ever experienced life in any form. And that's when the true nature of the experience began to unfold before me, the oneness. It was not just an abstract idea, not some philosophical or spiritual concept. It was the living, breathing reality of existence itself, an all-encompassing truth that defied any boundaries we create in our minds. The oneness I experienced was not limited to a single place or time. It was everywhere. It was in every soul, in every moment, and in every aspect of existence. The sense of separation, of individual identity, began to fade. I wasn't me anymore, not in the way I had understood it. I was part of something far greater, something that couldn't be described in terms of our human experience. Time, too, had no hold over me. The linear progression of past, present, and future no longer existed. Everything was one, all at once. I could see past lives and future experiences swirling together, woven into a vast tapestry that extended beyond time and space. It was all interconnected. Every thought, every action, every moment ever lived was part of this intricate, unbreakable web that stretched out through all eternity. The pain, joy, struggles, and triumphs of every soul were not isolated incidents. They were part of a grand, unified pattern. I could feel the lives of others, not just as abstract ideas or distant memories, but as real, palpable experiences that were unfolding in parallel with my own. It was as though I could see into the hearts and minds of every person who had ever lived, from the dawn of time to the farthest reaches of the future. There was no division between us. We were all connected. I could sense how this oneness included all human experiences, past and future, how every emotion, every joy, every sorrow was part of a much greater whole. In that moment, I understood that there is no true separation between us. We are not isolated in our individual struggles or triumphs. We are all part of the same story, the same flow of existence, experiencing life from different angles, but always part of the same vast, infinite tapestry. The oneness wasn't just a comforting idea. It was a living, breathing truth that existed beyond time, beyond space, beyond everything we know. I could feel the lives of people who had lived thousands of years ago, their joys and suffering, their hopes and dreams, as though they were happening right alongside me. I could feel the potential experiences of those who would be born long after I was gone, their future hopes and fears intertwined with mine in ways I could never have imagined. And it wasn't just about humanity. This oneness connected everything, every tree, every animal, every river, every star in the sky. The entire universe was woven together in a vast, unbroken unity. I could feel the rhythm of life in everything around me. The earth, the sky, the stars, and the vast expanse of space were all part of the same incredible pattern, and I was just a small, yet integral part of it. I understood, in that moment, that everything I had ever known or experienced was connected to everything else. All the questions I had about the meaning of life, the purpose of existence, suddenly made sense. There was no singular purpose, no grand, singular truth that defined us. The purpose was the oneness itself. It was the unfolding of life, the continual cycle of creation and destruction, birth and death, joy and sorrow, all of it together, part of the same eternal flow. And then, in the midst of all this, I realized something even more profound. This experience wasn't just something that had happened to me. It was a part of something much larger, something that was accessible to all of us. It wasn't reserved for a select few who had special knowledge or who had transcended the limits of the human mind. It was available to everyone, always. The oneness, the bliss, the love. It wasn't something that existed beyond us. It was inside of us. We are all, each of us, capable of tapping into this infinite connection, of feeling the unity that binds us all together. It's just that most of us are too distracted by the everyday realities of life to notice it. The moment I experienced this oneness, I understood that it was always there, always present. just waiting for us to step out of our limited perception and open ourselves to the truth that binds everything together. In that timeless moment, I also saw the cyclical nature of existence. Everything that has happened is still happening, and everything that will happen is already happening. There is no beginning or end. There is no true separation between life and death, no real divide between the past, present, and future. They are all part of one continuous, unbroken flow. It was as if time itself had no meaning. I could see all of it. The past, the future, and the present, interwoven and connected. Every experience, every action, every thought was like a note in a cosmic symphony, all contributing to the music of existence. And somehow, in that vast, infinite moment, I was both a part of it and an observer of it all at once. There was no longer any distinction between me and everything around me. I had become the oneness. I don't know how to explain what happened next. One moment, I was floating. Untethered, free, and at one with everything. The next moment, I was here, in my body. Suddenly, I was aware of every sensation, every physical limitation I had left behind just moments before. The sensation of weight, the tightness of my chest, the beating of my heart that now seemed so loud in comparison to the quiet peace I had known only moments before. It was as though a veil had been torn away, revealing the stark, concrete reality of the world. My body was no longer a vessel of bliss and love. It was simply flesh and bone, fragile, susceptible, bound by the laws of time and space. And with that sudden awareness, everything I had just experienced, everything that had felt like home, like true connection to the universe, like unconditional love, seemed to slip away from me, as quickly and effortlessly as sand slipping through my fingers. I fought to hold on to it, to cling to the memory of that all-encompassing love, the oneness I had felt so deeply. But the more I tried, the further it receded from me, as though it was always just out of reach, as though it was never really meant to stay. My mind raced to understand what had happened. I could still feel the echoes of the experience, the faint hum of that incredible peace that had surrounded me. But it was fading, fast. The physical world, with all its distractions, began to take over again. The beeping of machines, the sterile smell of the room, the sharpness of the chair beneath me. All of it became so real, so immediate, that it almost suffocated me. I wanted to return to that place, that space, that endless sea of love and unity. I wanted to stay there forever, to never have to leave it behind. But it wasn't meant to be. The more I tried to reconnect, the more I realized that it wasn't something I could simply return to on command. It wasn't something I could grasp with my mind or my willpower. That feeling, that sense of oneness, wasn't something I could force into being again. It had been a gift, a glimpse into something so profound, so vast that it couldn't be contained by the small, fragile part of me that was now anchored back in this body. I remember trying to breathe deeply, trying to anchor myself in the reality of my body, trying to ground myself in the sensations that were returning with overwhelming force. But the contrast was jarring. The weight of my body felt so heavy, so burdensome compared to the lightness I had felt moments before. My breath felt shallow, my pulse quick, and the pain in my body, pain I hadn't even realized I was carrying, seemed to intensify as I became aware of it again. It was as though I had come back to a body that had long ago begun to deteriorate, a vessel that was no longer the peaceful, infinite being I had been just moments ago. The connection to the love, to the unity of all things, had slipped away like water flowing through my fingers. No matter how tightly I closed my hands, I couldn't hold on to it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake myself awake and return to that place, to find that infinite love once more. But I couldn't. It wasn't there anymore. All I had now were the memories, those fleeting sensations of oneness that felt like they were fading into the distance, just beyond my reach. It was as though the more I tried to hold on to them, the more they slipped away. The more I reached for that connection to the universe, the more it dissolved, like smoke in the air, fading into nothingness. And yet, there was a part of me that couldn't quite let go of it, that refused to believe that it was truly gone. It had been so real, so powerful, that I couldn't accept the idea that it was just a temporary experience, something that was meant to disappear once my body regained control. I couldn't help but feel a deep longing, a sense of emptiness, as though I was missing something vital, something that had been taken away from me far too soon. There was a yearning in my chest, an ache that I couldn't explain, as if I were grieving something that I had only just discovered. The love I had felt was unlike anything I had ever known, and now that it was gone, it left a void that felt unbearable, a space that nothing in the physical world could fill. I tried to focus on the present moment, on the things that I could see and hear. I tried to connect with the physical world around me, to remind myself that I was here, alive, breathing. But even as I did, I felt so separate from it all. It felt like I was a spectator in my own life, like I was watching myself from a distance. The world around me, the people, the noises, they all felt so far removed from the love I had experienced just moments before. There was a dissonance, a disconnect that I couldn't bridge. The physical world, with all its demands and distractions, seemed so small and insignificant compared to the vastness of what I had known. The more I tried to make sense of it, the more I realized that there was no easy answer. No way to make the love, the oneness, stay with me. It was as if it existed on a different plane, a higher realm that couldn't be accessed through will or desire. It wasn't something that could be controlled, held onto, or possessed. It was something that had to be surrendered to, something that could only be experienced in its own time. And yet, as much as I understood this intellectually, there was a part of me that still couldn't let go of the longing. The feeling of being part of something so much bigger than myself, of being connected to every soul, every being, every moment. It was so profound, so life-altering, that I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was as if a door had opened, just for a moment, to a greater truth, and then it had slammed shut before I could fully step through. I began to wonder if that was what life was all about, the constant push and pull between these two worlds, the world of the body and the world of the soul. I wondered if the human experience was about learning to bridge the gap, to connect the two, to find moments of oneness even within the limitations of the body. It felt as though I had been given a taste of something so pure, so real, that I couldn't help but yearn for it again. But I knew, deep down, that I couldn't force it. I couldn't make the experience happen. All I could do was remember it, carry it with me, and trust that it was still there, waiting for me, somewhere beyond the veil. As I continued to breathe deeply, trying to settle into my body once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been changed forever. The longing would not disappear, nor would the memory of that profound love. And though I knew I couldn't hold on to it, I also knew that it had left an indelible mark on me. It had shown me the truth that love, oneness, connection, those things are not limited by time or space, by bodies or minds. They are a part of who we are, a part of the fabric of existence. And even if I couldn't hold on to them in the moment, I knew they would never truly disappear. They were always there, waiting for me to remember, to reconnect, to find them again. I just had to be patient and let the connection come when the time was right. But until then, I would carry the memory of it with me, knowing that I had glimpsed something that transcended everything I had ever known. And maybe, just maybe, that glimpse was enough. I've spent a lot of time thinking about my near-death experience, trying to make sense of what happened and what it meant for me. It was one of those moments in life that you never forget. One that changes you at a core level, reshapes the way you see the world, the way you see yourself. At the time, I didn't fully understand what I had gone through, but over the years, I've pieced together the fragments, trying to find meaning in what I experienced. And in doing so, I've come across so many stories from other people who have had similar experiences. Some of them are eerily similar to mine, while others are completely different. But even though each near-death experience, NDE, is unique, I began to notice some common threads, things that seem to appear again and again, regardless of the person, the circumstances, or the place. For me, the experience began in what I can only describe as a strange, disorienting moment. One minute, I was there, living my life, feeling, thinking, moving through the world. And the next minute, I was outside of it. I was floating, suspended in this space that felt both familiar and completely foreign at the same time. There was no sense of fear, no panic, just a deep sense of peace, as if I had stepped into a place where everything made sense, even if I didn't understand all of it. I wasn't in my body anymore. And yet, I was more aware than I had ever been. The separation from my physical self was jarring, but not terrifying. In fact, there was a profound sense of relief, as if the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. What struck me the most was the feeling of connection. It wasn't just that I felt connected to the world around me, but that I was part of everything. It was as though I could feel the heartbeat of the universe, the pulse of life itself. I could sense all the beings around me, those who had passed, those still living, and even those who would come long after. It was a sense of unity, of oneness that I can't quite describe in words. And yet, as comforting as it was, there was still something unsettling about it. Because as much as I wanted to stay in that place, I knew that I couldn't. There was this undeniable pull, something drawing me back, something telling me it wasn't my time yet. As I looked deeper into the experiences of others who had gone through something similar, I began to recognize some familiar patterns. Many NDEs share that sense of peace, that overwhelming love that fills every corner of your being. Many people describe a feeling of detachment from the physical world, of looking down on their bodies from above, and even a sense of seeing a tunnel or a bright light. It was strange how often I encountered stories with elements so similar to my own. I wondered at first if these common threads were just a coincidence or if there was something more to them. Was there a universal truth behind it all? Or was it simply the mind's way of processing something so incomprehensible? But as I kept learning, I realized that while many NDEs follow these common themes, peace, love, light, connection, each one is still incredibly personal. No two experiences are exactly the same, even if they seem to touch on similar feelings or ideas. Some people see loved ones who have passed. Others speak of encounters with spiritual beings or guides. Some have vivid, detailed visions of the afterlife, while others simply describe an overwhelming sense of being surrounded by warmth and light. And there are those, like me, who experience something that can't easily be defined, something that defies all the conventional ideas of what a near-death experience should look like. For me, the sense of oneness was what stood out the most. I could feel myself connected to everything, every soul, every living thing, every star in the sky. It wasn't just a spiritual connection. It was as if I could feel the entire fabric of existence in a way that I had never been able to before. It wasn't a vision or a dream. It was a profound knowing, an understanding that there is no separation, that we are all threads woven into the same vast tapestry. In that moment, I realized that everything I had ever worried about, the fears, the regrets, the things that once seemed so important, were nothing in comparison to the infinite nature of the universe. It was as though I had seen beyond the veil of reality and understood something much greater than myself. But as much as I wanted to stay in that place, there was also this quiet, undeniable pull to return. I could feel it tugging at me, urging me to come back, to re-enter my body, to finish what I had started. I can't explain why, but it felt like I had more to do, more to learn, more to experience before my time was truly over. And so I found myself slowly being drawn back, not with force, but with a gentle, inevitable gravity, until the feeling of oneness began to slip away. As I returned to my body, I could feel the weight of it, heavy, fragile, bound by time and space. The peace and love that had filled me began to fade, replaced by the familiar sensations of the physical world. The more I tried to hold on to it, the more it slipped away from me, until all I was left with were the memories, the echoes of what I had felt. And that, I think, is the most profound thing about near-death experiences, the way they change you. Even though I couldn't hold on to the connection I had felt, it left a mark on me. It changed how I saw everything. It changed how I saw life, death, and the connection between all of us. It made me more aware of the moments of oneness that are available to us if we only take the time to notice them. Since then, I've learned to appreciate the beauty of life in a way that I never did before. I've learned to see the threads that connect us all, and to understand that our individual lives are part of something much greater than ourselves. But I've also come to understand that while there are commonalities in many NDEs, no two experiences are the same. Each one is as unique as the person who experiences it. There's a depth to every story, a richness that can't be reduced to a set of predictable patterns. Every person's journey, every person's path, is different. And that's what makes each NDE so powerful and so personal. The themes that show up again and again, peace, love, oneness, are universal. But the way each person encounters them, the way each person integrates those experiences into their life, is entirely their own. I may never fully understand the reasons behind my experience, but I do know this. It has shaped me in ways I could never have anticipated. It has given me a deeper appreciation for life, for the connections we share, and for the moments of beauty that can be found in even the smallest things. And while I can't hold on to the oneness I felt in that moment, I carry it with me. A part of me. A reminder of the truth I touched, even if only for a brief time. Before my near-death experience, I had always thought of God in a very traditional sense. I saw God as something separate, somewhere far beyond us, a figure to worship, a place or being to which we were all meant to strive. It was always about reaching for that higher power, hoping to align myself with something grander, something outside of me. But when I experienced the vastness of love, the oneness that transcends everything during my journey, it completely redefined everything I thought I knew about God. What I came to understand in that profound moment of clarity is that God is not a person or a place. God is not even a singular force that we have to reach toward or seek out. No, God, in its truest form, is a verb. God is love in motion. I know that might sound strange or even blasphemous to some, but hear me out. In that space, I felt love, pure, unconditional love, not as a static thing, not as a distant concept, but as an ever-present, flowing energy. Love was something that moved through everything. It wasn't something that came to us from above, but rather something that existed within us and all around us, all the time, constantly evolving, constantly shifting, constantly connecting. In that moment, I realized that God is not a noun to be defined, but a force, a movement, an action. Love itself in its most expansive, unlimited form. It's the force that drives everything in the universe, the force that connects us to each other, to all living things, and to the very essence of life itself. It's love that constantly flows, constantly shifts, constantly grows and expands. In this sense, God is love, always in motion, always evolving, and we are not separate from it. We are a part of it. We are expressions of it. When I came back to my body, it was hard to reconcile this new understanding of God with the way I had lived my life before. I had spent so much time trying to follow a prescribed set of rules, trying to live up to the expectations of others, of society, of religion. I had been taught that there were right ways and wrong ways to live, that there was a clear path to follow. But this new perspective, this realization that God is love in motion, made me see life and its purpose in a completely different way. Life, I believe now, is not about achieving perfection or following a set of rules to please an external force. Life is about experiencing and embodying unconditional love. It's about connecting with the soul and allowing that love to flow through us. The essence of life is to love, to experience the beauty of love in all its forms, and to understand that love is what we are made of, what we are meant to give and receive. This shift in perspective has made me realize that there is no right or wrong way to live. For so long, I felt the pressure to conform, to fit into boxes, to live according to what others expected of me. There was always that underlying feeling that I was falling short, that I wasn't living the right way. But now I see that we are all unique expressions of love. The soul is already complete, already whole. It doesn't need to be perfected or fixed. We are not here to meet someone else's idea of how we should live. We are here to experience life as we are, to live authentically and to allow love to flow through us. The more we connect with our true selves, the more we align with that love, and the more we can bring that love into the world around us. It's not about doing everything perfectly or living a life free of mistakes. It's about embracing the love within us and sharing it with others. When I look at life through this lens, everything changes. Every moment becomes an opportunity to experience love. The ups, the downs, the struggles, the triumphs, they are all part of the same flow of love. There are no mistakes, no wrong turns. Each choice, each step along the way is just another opportunity to connect, to grow, to love. And the more I embrace this, the more I realize that the soul is not some fragile thing in need of fixing. It's already perfect, already complete. It's a spark of love that can never be diminished or broken. Life is not about striving for some distant goal or external validation. It's about experiencing the fullness of love, about being fully present with ourselves and with others, and about embracing the beauty in every moment. What I have learned is that the purpose of life is not something to be figured out or achieved. It's something to be lived. And that living is not a race, not a checklist of accomplishments, but a journey of love. Love is not something that we get or earn. It's something that we are, and it's something we give, without expectation, without limitation. Every interaction, every moment of connection with another soul is an opportunity to express that love. When we connect with each other, when we live from a place of love, we align ourselves with the greater flow of life, with the very essence of existence. We realize that we are all part of the same interconnected whole, each of us living out our unique expression of love. It's taken me some time to fully embrace this, to let go of the old ways of thinking that had shaped me for so long. But now, with this new understanding, I feel lighter. I feel free. There's no more pressure to live up to some ideal or to follow a set of prescribed rules. There's just the freedom to be myself, to love myself and to love others without the fear of judgment or failure. And what I've come to realize is that this is true for everyone. No one is separate from this love. We are all capable of embodying it, of living it. The soul doesn't need to be fixed or perfected. It's already whole. We are already complete. And the only thing we need to do is open ourselves up to the love that flows through us, to the love that connects us all. In the end, I've come to understand that the purpose of life isn't to achieve success or live up to anyone's expectations. The purpose of life is to experience the beauty of love, to connect with the soul, and to share that love with the world. It's not about doing things perfectly or living according to a set of rules. It's about embracing who we truly are, expressing that love, and knowing that in doing so, we are part of the greater flow of life. We don't need to seek approval or validation from anyone else. We are already enough. We are already perfect, exactly as we are. And the more we love, the more we connect, the more we align with the infinite love that is always available to us. That, to me, is the true purpose of life. If you feel this story has touched your heart, do not hesitate to like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss out on future profound and meaningful sharing. Every story, every experience has its own power to connect us together. I look forward to hearing your story, the experiences, the reflections you have had on your life journey. Please share your story in the comments section below, because maybe your story will inspire someone in difficult times. We are all living in a challenging world, but when we share, we can make life easier and more meaningful. Thank you for accompanying me, and hope that together we will continue to explore the wonders of life. Do not forget to share this video with friends and relatives so that this story can reach more people.